I like to think that surfing is unique in that way because that's what I know.
Yeah.
And it is like you're enveloped in Mother Nature, and there's all these kind of things that I could argue would make it unique.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I've ever heard anybody talk about that represents that same connection is climbing. And so I don't know that to be true because I don't climb, but I was actually going to ask you about that.
Yeah. It's, no, it's interesting. I think about it all the time because I do both. That's two of my main things that I love to do. And climbing is equally important as surfing is to me in my life. But yeah, it's funny. You can't really compare the acts because it's so different. And I do go out on a limb with surfing as saying it is one of the most unique things you can do in this world. I really believe it is. Like there's nothing like that at all. And climbing's the action of it is not at all, but it's the same. Whereas surfing, you learn to kind of adapt to your surroundings and learn to work with your surroundings, like when and these are all things that you don't really notice until you think about it. But, you jumped in that current, the current takes you out to the peak. To get in, if the current and channel's too strong, you just take waves in. Like you're not conquering the surroundings, you're working with it. So, and you're becoming more harmonious, I guess, with your surroundings. So climbing's kind of the same thing. Like a lot of rock climbers will disagree with that old mountaineering thing. Like we conquered the mountain. It's like, no, you met the mountain on its terms and you rose with it and you summited because you met it on its own terms. And that to me is similar to surfing. It's like you have to be humble. You have to be able to make mistakes and learn from those. And in that way, it's really similar. Yeah. You're never conquering it. And you never, like surfing, I mean, I'm sure Kelly is still figuring stuff out. Like you never get it dialed, and climbing, there's always going to be something harder. There's always going to be somebody better. It's a real humbling thing, and you fail a lot.
Right.
And you talk about climbers failing and how those are some of their most kind of impactful climbs are the ones, not the ones where they made it. It's the ones that they failed on. And that's how you get better. That's how you grow. And all that. So yeah, it's real similar. And the people, the characters are real similar. Like I got into climbing late in life. I was always interested in it as a kid. I grew up in Northern California and going to Yosemite with my parents and stuff. And so I knew about climbing and I was always really interested in it and kind of read about it. But I moved to the North Shore when I was like 18 or something. And I just didn't get into climbing until I was like early 30s, 31 or something. And yeah, it was the characters right away. I'm like, oh my God, that, to me they're the same, right? The Yosemite Valley is just like the North Shore of Oahu. Right, it's where it's the proving grounds. It's where everybody goes every year. And I was like, oh, that's the same character. I mean, they're like, they're perfect fits. That guy, you could just put him on the North Shore and he'd be the same dude, and because you got these, these real eccentric guys. You got the macho guys. You got the, type A guys. You just have all these different people, and there's a lot of character in that, and I don't know. That was my attraction right away. And again, it was kind of like the time that I got into climbing was around early 2000s. And it's changed a little bit, but surfing, I came from the North Shore, where it's the epicenter. Surfing, it's kind of a scene. And I was blown away by the climbers because they were just so underground. Kind of reminded me, like I said, again, like the skaters I grew up with in the early 80s. There just wasn't money in it. It was like so underground, and these climbers were doing some of the most audacious shit in the world, and with very little fanfare. Right. Some of the best climbers in the world don't even have places to sleep in the valley. They're still sleeping in their vans outside the valley.
I've seen that.
And they're like the number one climbers.
Right.
So I just love the humility of that, and it's still there in surfing, but I was in the thick of it in Hawaii, where it's just such a scene. I was coming to, Yosemite Valley and seeing the same thing, but it's just so much more underground and low key,